In summary, with this whole conversation, I think it just shows that I am chronically online.
Alexis Sunshine 83, it's always sunny here. Boop.
Hey Sunshiners, Alexis Sunshine 83 here. Today I want to talk about fashion aesthetics. Specifically, if we are over the fashion aesthetic. I recently came across this article, and even though it was posted last March, I feel a lot of the conversation within it is what's being talked about a lot right now in regards to how aesthetics have not only affected overconsumption, trends, but also just personal style in general. Now, labels of fashion styles is nothing new. There were the flappers in the 1920s, punks in the 1970s, gyaru, the Japanese subculture in the 1990s, and the visco girl aesthetic of 2019, just to name a few. Fashion is an art of expression. Whether you are purposeful or not with it, what you wear tells people a lot about yourself just with a glance. And so additionally, dressing in a subculture or aesthetic is gonna tell people even more about you, like what music you listen to, what your hobbies are, and even what you eat. I am no stranger to fashion aesthetics and cores. I used to do videos where I would buy a thrifted mystery box that was themed around a different aesthetic like cottagecore or Y2K, and that turned into me trying to thrift specifically for a fashion style like whimsy goth or 2014 Tumblr aesthetic. And I recently realized I have not done one of those videos since August when I thrifted for the old money aesthetic. And back in 2021, I would get requests all the time for different aesthetics that I should do a mystery box about or try to thrift for. And now it's been 7 months. I've also even personally not felt very excited about any aesthetic that has come up enough to make a dedicated thrifting video about, and I just feel a lot of us are kind of having a little bit of an aversion to aesthetics just because they were really fun in the beginning, but now it's just kind of exhausting every time one pops up on a fashion magazine like website that's like, ooh, this is the new aesthetic for summertime. Here are 10 things that you should buy now to be part of it. I wanted to make this video just talking about why we may be over fashion aesthetics and also to get your kind of opinion and insight on what you think about fashion aesthetics, especially when it comes to the longevity of them. There's so many fashion styles, like I talked about, that have been around for such a long time, and they are really just like descriptors now for a certain silhouette and I guess kind of like look, whereas the fashion aesthetics today, I just don't see having any longevity, and why that is. I do think we first have to define the difference between fashion aesthetics and subcultures. A subculture is a lifestyle which for most was about straying away from the status quo. It can have fashion identifiers, but it's less about what you need to buy to be part of it and more about the fundamental values of the subculture. For example, being punk was about opposing authority, which was done through behavior and through fashion, but it wasn't needing to go buy like $100 distressed jeans to be involved. It was taking something that you already had and not caring about what other people think. Most subcultures have in them this anti-materialistic, anti-capitalist in them, and probably the best example of this like back and forth in regards to like fashion and a subculture is goth. Side note, I am obviously not an expert on being goth, but when I had done my like quote unquote goth thrifted mystery box video, I had done, some research in there and didn't realize that the whole kind of core of being goth is not about the fashion at all, and actually being goth is about listening to the music. So if you were to dress in a goth style but not listen to the music, technically the subculture wouldn't see you as being goth. There's definitely, again, a lot back and forth and opinions. Again, I don't think I can speak for that because I am not part of it. I definitely understand when the fashion industry has taken something away from a subculture and turned it into like a fashion micro trend. Like, I get being angry over that and wanting to be very like protective, especially if it has like anti-capitalist roots in it, like that the irony of that then being taken to like mass produce on like that scale within fashion. A fashion aesthetic slash core is more about your overall clothing style. Think clowncore. Obviously, you probably have a love for fun colors, clowns, duh, and whimsical sense of style. In most cases, aesthetics have more of a surface level, and not saying that in a negative way, just more that they don't have deep rooted movements within them. And even if they do, what becomes popular is an emphasis on looking the part and having more of a general vibe. Dark academia technically does have a concentration with higher education, the arts, and literature, but what grips it as an internet aesthetic is the dark moody photos, dark preppy plaids, and basically the perfect cozy style for fall time. There's plenty of breakdowns on what kind of dark academia style person you are, from if you like this, you like this, to dark academia activity collages. And I think dark academia maybe at the core was a subculture, but it's been taken at the surface as an aesthetic, and I would say is now like the fall aesthetic. Like every time fall comes around, we're gonna get PSLs and dark academia. Labeling fashion styles, I don't think is something that is necessarily bad. A lot of times it can be helpful to figure out a focus on what you like and even finding things that you like. An example is if I were to type in whimsy goth to Depop, I would get things that were in line with the whimsy goth style. And so that can make it so much easier to find pieces that I already know that I like in regards to the silhouette, the color, and just like overall even what I already own. If I dress in the whimsy goth style and I'm searching for whimsy goth clothing, like it's all probably going to go together. Finding people through the aesthetic hashtags that are in the aesthetic and dress similar to you can be great for inspiration. I follow somebody that dresses in like a whimsy goth style, and they had made a video going through all the brands that they look for on Depop that is aligned with the aesthetic, so that can be really helpful. And I almost find that a lot of the communities within these aesthetics can be just as uplifting as the communities in subcultures. I've even seen sustainable takes on how following a fashion aesthetic can actually help you buy less, because if a trend pops up and it doesn't align with, again, the like colors, the silhouette, the overall vibe of that aesthetic, then you won't buy it. The boom of the fashion aesthetic, I'd argue, happened during the pandemic when we were stuck inside, possibly questioning a sense of self based on that limitation. And it was kind of the perfect time to experiment with fashion because you were just stuck at home, and a lot of people were obviously online too. So within these aesthetics, there was, like I said, communities, and a lot of people were able to socialize when they hadn't been able to socialize. Some of the aesthetics that came out around that time were e-girl, cottagecore, fairycore, Y2K, Regency core, and dark academia. Each one of those seemed like an escape as well. Like, yes, let me cosplay as somebody that lives in a cottage and frolics through a field of flowers. As I was thinking about this topic, I've been kind of going back and forth if we are more easily influenced now compared to like when I was a kid, and the way that we get influence and also like fashion inspiration and trends in general, because obviously fashion trends and styles have been around, but with the TV and internet, it widened the amount of like resources that we could get fashion inspiration, and also how many trends and styles can be trending at the same time. But we as people, not everyone, obviously I'm generalizing and mainly just talking about myself, we all get influenced. I think about in the early 2000s, like if you're a millennial, you 100% wore that little braid thing that Lauren Conrad did on the hills, or you probably bought capris after you saw Beyonce wearing capris on TRL. And there were, I guess, aesthetics in the early 2000s, but they were way more fleshed out and had like more deeper meaning than the aesthetics that we see today. Now, as somebody that was born in 1994, I feel I have a good mix of being an internet kid, but also not an internet kid. Like we always had a computer from what I remember growing up, and I have been an avid Sims player since 2000. Yes, I was 6 years old making my Sims woohoo. Okay, that game raised me, which honestly explains a lot. In regards to me, I guess getting fashion inspiration and even dipping my toes into fashion aesthetics and like subcultures really didn't happen until, I mean, obviously I was getting inspired by the Disney Channel and like Tiger Beat magazine, but internet inspiration I don't think was until I created my very first digital footprint in 2007 on MySpace. That truly dictated my entire personal style, because that is where I found the subculture scene kid, or I guess fashion style. I don't know. I guess it's a subculture. People like Audrey Kitching and Taylor Parks on MySpace 100% were my biggest fashion inspirations. Like I wanted to dress like them head to toe. And I guess that was a big time for, I guess, internet influencers in a way. Most of the people, especially in the like scene fashion space, were just other teenagers. And so a lot of their clothing you could just buy from the mall. You almost got more inspiration because you could buy those exact pieces. I mean, yeah, you could go and buy Hilary Duff's candy. I mean, I don't know when she made the candies line. Everyone that made a line with Kohl's, yes, you could go buy that, but a lot of times that wasn't the clothes they were actually wearing, versus this person that is in the style that you love. You want to be them, and so you want to buy clothes to look like them. And I did. I backcombed my hair to the heavens. I wore pounds and pounds of foundation, and I wore the skinniest jeans possible. I personally just looked at scene fashion as fashion and not really anything kind of deeper than that. I also didn't really find any community within it. I think I was just way too young, and at that time, as a 13-year-old, we were told not to talk to strangers online. There were also not really anyone else around me, or I think, yeah, that I can think of that really dressed in that scene style, or at least we definitely, I don't remember using the term like scene, but obviously now looking back and knowing what that style is and knowing where I was getting my inspiration from, it totally makes sense. People did make fun of how big my hair was, because it was big. There was no reason for it to be that big. Let's just pretend that this isn't now being filmed the next day. Moving into the 2010s is when, at least for myself, we start seeing the beginning of internet aesthetics, and I feel kind of the exposure to aesthetics in general kind of similar to how we see them today. There was twee, indie sleaze, of course the Tumblr, soft grunge, and so many more. It could just be low self-confidence, but similar to how I looked at seeing people on MySpace, I kind of did the same thing with Tumblr. The people that dressed in the soft grunge style, I really wanted to emulate who they were and the look that they gave off. I was, again, very insecure, so I didn't necessarily like fully commit, but I did have some wannabe disco pants from Forever 21, and I remember going into an American Apparel for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I can't remember if that style necessarily had a like name at the time. At least I didn't know that, or I didn't really pay attention to it. I would just reblog people that were reblogging that style and not necessarily like searching for it. From what I can remember, I'm trying to think like what I would put into the search tools, but hashtags I did not understand them. And again, I would just like follow the people that then I would, like their stuff. I wasn't actively creating a proper like Tumblr account or anything. I guess I would look up like shows and movies. Maybe I would just type in the word aesthetic. I truly cannot remember, but probably the one aesthetic that I did know by name was hipster, mainly because you would see headlines all the time that were like, these hipster millennials don't want to work, and there was a lot of like anger towards hipsters, and specifically in regards to like millennials. Very similar to the scene style that I was in. There wasn't really a community online that I was a part of. Like, I didn't talk to anyone online that was part of that style. I didn't know anyone in real life that was into the soft grunge style, which honestly probably was a good thing because there were a lot of toxic parts of those communities. Instagram and YouTube as fashion inspirations and outlets really started to boom in 2014. I think of Zoella, definitely she wore the American Apparel disco pants, but I even think of her shopping at Topshop. Oh my god, I was so angry there were no Topshops where I lived. When I went to a Topshop for the very first time, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I saw the prices and it was like, oh my gosh. I think of Bethany Moda with her circle skirts and crop tops and our Aeropostale line. Like, there have been these internet influencers that have been inspiring us with their fashion, and even I think of OG YouTube where they would do Black Friday shopping videos and hauls. In referencing all of that, dressing like celebrities or influencers, or even being inspired by somebody like at the grocery store with their outfit is something we all do. And I think trying different styles that maybe aren't even your style can help you find your style and help you figure out what feels comfortable to you. And so getting inspired by honestly anyone and anything isn't bad. Although, now getting onto the subject of TikTok, the speed of cycles of trends and aesthetics and in general influences. Like I said on Tumblr, I mean, I'm sure there were some deeper aesthetics and fashion styles I did not know about. There were, fashion styles that weren't mainstream that were going on, but on TikTok, there's so many niches that have like millions of views as well. It's not just like a small community, it's actually a big community, but it's a community that maybe you don't even know of because obviously the TikTok algorithm is trying to give you stuff that you are interested in. But I will say I get a lot of TikToks on just random aesthetics and random styles, and every single month there is a new aesthetic to follow and a guide on how to get the look for that aesthetic. And maybe again, it is also just my algorithm. I know I talk about 2020 probably in every single one of my sit down videos, but it was really a time in regards to micro trends and the craze of just overconsumption, and then also into breeding the fashion aesthetic, needing stuff that is new, showing where to get this new stuff, and just fast fashion. You didn't know if next month that aesthetic or trend was going to be over, and so you're going to miss your chance to go viral. And all of that, I think, is now catching up to us. Even though early 2020, 2021 aesthetics, I will say, seem to have a little bit more longevity. Like, people are still talking about dark academia and cottagecore. For a lot of people, it is now. They're like cemented as a core part of their personal style. And through TikTok and these aesthetics, we've been able to see so much more representation within different styles versus like on Tumblr when it was really only represented in one way, or what was pushed out and went viral to us at the time. Whereas now anyone can dress in that way and also then connect with people that look the same as them. And it has, in actually a positive way, has more eyes and more ability to actually connect with so many people by being part of an aesthetic or putting together an outfit that is emulating an aesthetic. It can have a huge impact when it comes to gaining an audience online because you are making yourself searchable. Putting the title spring outfits in a sea of millions of spring outfit videos on TikTok makes it a lot harder for you to be noticed versus coastal cowgirl spring outfits brings the people that are already liking that aesthetic and liking that style to you. Using aesthetics as descriptors is letting people know what they are getting. It's really about maximizing an algorithm versus being a person, because being a person, we have so many different interests and likes, and one day we want to wear all black, the next day we want to wear all pink, and only dressing in, you know, a Barbie-core aesthetic isn't really aligned with most people, yet that's what is popular online. Putting yourself in a box that's easily digestible and lets viewers know who you are, but also not who you are. There just seems to be a big emphasis on branding yourself, like your style needs to have an aesthetic name. I even saw this, it was like, what is gonna be the hot aesthetic for 2024? And somebody said me-core, and I don't know if that's honestly a good thing or a bad thing, because yes, then we are focusing on ourselves and personal style, but did we need a name for it to actually do it? We basically put ourselves in these boxes in a way. Nobody's saying don't wear all black, but when we see Barbie-core is trending, we need to wear all pink to be able to be, again, searchable for people and an audience. With the that girl wave, it very much was only being shown in one way. You have the perfect apartment, you have the specific workout set, and if you didn't have those things and other things, then you weren't considered that girl. Obviously, this isn't me against anyone that was part of the aesthetic, just more a look at the negatives that came out of it. How many videos did we see of people trying to be that girl? And in most cases, the summary at the end was, this isn't realistic for most people, and in general is just kind of more an internet thing and not a real life thing. Which reminds me of a conversation that was being had a couple of months ago in regards to how people care more about how they are perceived online versus in real life, especially if the video is good or they're trying to get a video to go viral. They don't care if they are looking odd in real life, you know, because what actually matters to them is how they look like online. And again, I mean, technically, I guess I'm kind of in that boat because I film at the thrift store, and my gosh, try to take a thumbnail in a Savers on Senior Tuesday. It is terrible. It is humiliating. I look very awkward in person 100%, but obviously what matters to me is getting that thumbnail for that video. There's obviously more to that. There's some very wacky things that people do in public for viral videos, and I guess just the focus of us caring, again, more about an online audience that we kind of don't know versus people like around us in real life. I mean, maybe you don't know those people too, but it's just a shift of what we care more about. It may seem extreme that some people do feel anxiety in regards to needing to wear a certain aesthetic and stick to a certain aesthetic, but in every aesthetic video that I have watched, there are comments below it saying how they really like an aesthetic, but how difficult it is to stick to it. Overall, I don't think aesthetics are about who you are. They're more about almost aspiring to be something or to have a certain life, a lot of times for social media purposes.
TikTok loves commodifying personalities and lifestyles. People on the internet are not living their life. 2024, if you want better style, cultivate your own gifts and hobbies. Trust your process and live your life.
Which, following fashion trends and aesthetics isn't necessarily what's bad. I mean, the micro trend and like pushing of trends, yes, but it's more what comes out of that, which is the fast production of low quality pieces and low quality items in unethical conditions, and the major production aspect of new clothing. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I used to do thrifted mystery boxes themed around an aesthetic, and my whole purpose for them was to catch the people that were really feeling inspired about an aesthetic and get them to see that you can buy it secondhand instead of just buying the pieces new. And obviously the mystery box aspect was a fun, like, little risky thing, and I think it caught more people's attention versus just like going to the thrift store. Also, at that time, technically going to the thrift store was a little bit difficult. I learned so much about my style with doing those videos, and it was great getting outside of my comfort zone. But I did realize that I was still contributing to this disposable fashion mindset, because a majority of the items, like literally maybe 1 or 2 out of 8, I liked. So it kind of defeated the whole purpose of me doing it secondhand. So that's why I switched to then going to the thrift store and trying to thrift for the aesthetic. But I also then found I a lot of times wouldn't thrift stuff that was super part of the aesthetic, and instead was almost like my own take on it and maybe a little bit more tailored to my personal style, which actually I think was better, you know, taking inspiration from an aesthetic, even if you want to dress in that aesthetic, and still tailoring it to your style is gonna be the way to go. And again, it being more you versus just kind of following something that potentially next month will be considered outdated. But with those videos, I then would get comments saying this isn't part of that aesthetic. I couldn't do the copy and paste because I would end up thrifting stuff that I wasn't going to wear again, even if it then the outcome was more in line with the aesthetic. It, for me, getting it secondhand already is going to make it a little bit more unique to you, but people still wanted it to be exact, which I totally get. If you're looking for inspiration for an aesthetic, you don't want to see something that's like slightly like inspired by, but if we had more of that mindset, I think there would be a lot more of a healthy relationship with aesthetics and trends, just saying.
To take a trend like mob wife aesthetic and actually find your personal style, first I would go on Pinterest and pin photos of the outfits that actually you like from this trend, and I would compare it with your general fashion board that you pin to. Notice what items or styling techniques that are similar and overlap between the two.
Maybe some of the downsides a lot of the times with aesthetics is it is very head to toe. Like, if you're gonna dress in mermaid core, you need a shell necklace, you need a shell little, you know, hair thing, which there's so many like small businesses and secondhand fashion where you can find those pieces, but a lot of times you get it from Urban Outfitters, you get it from Shein, you get it from Amazon, because you want to dress in that way now, and you also want it to be kind of similar to when I would get comments that the aesthetic I was thrifting for, it wasn't exact. You want it to be exact. You want to commit to the bit, but that ends up inevitably causing an issue when next month there's a new fashion core that you now need to find pieces to dress head to toe in. The brand Lulu's has an entire blog post breaking down each aesthetic and having pieces that you can buy to create that full look to properly be a part of the aesthetic. Sitting with what you already own and what you have and your personal style in this exact moment isn't what's promoted. What's promoted is something new that you need to buy for the summertime to emulate coastal grandma or eclectic grandpa. All of it just makes you question your fashion all of the time, because you're like, wait, should I be dressing in grandpa eclectic outfits? I think maybe I already naturally do. I don't know.
Stop trying to figure out what your personal style aesthetic is. Because here's the thing, if it is personal, it's not going to fit into an aesthetic. We've come up with all of these styles: classic, boho, brands can sell a product, not to help you find your personal style, but so that you're more marketable to sell things to. In the same way we can ruin our style by only wearing clothes that are flattering, also ruin it by discarding clothes we like simply because they don't fit our aesthetic. All you gotta do when you go shopping is ask yourself, do I like that? By being more selective and not forcing your opinions to be swayed by an aesthetic, you might start to notice your closet look a lot more unique.
Probably the biggest shift in opinion on aesthetics comes from how comical and random they've become and have been promoted over the past year. Like last January, 2023 January, there was a lot of this type of conversation, but I think it's just gotten worse in regards to brands just making up aesthetics to sell things. Like, I'm sorry, Tomato Girl, cutie patootie name, don't get me wrong. And again, I love a fun little name, but also Lisa Says God just happens to create a Italian-ish inspired pattern on jeans and bathing suits when European aesthetic or European summer aesthetic, I don't remember what it was called, was trending. Conspiracy? I don't know.
Say goodbye to eclectic grandpa. TikTok's newest aesthetic is bewildered mailman. Dark academia is out, evil denim is in. Ditch the puffer and grab a hazmat suit. We're doing Chernobyl cousin winter. The latest aesthetic is equestrian poo-poo, and the girls are going absolutely poo-poo over it. How to nail the sneaky little court jester aesthetic dominating your FYP. Link in our bio for the best stupid little bells.
These aesthetics are really just repackaged micro trends because a lot of them, it's only like one outfit, like bloatcore. I think it's like one or two outfits maybe that is part of that aesthetic. It's really just like a trendy name for a sports jersey and like frilly skirt. Then we have like errand core. Like it then gets frustrating, the amount of like these random and again funny names, and I just feel like it's gonna get worse. Like there's gonna be even more random core names that companies are going to create. In summary, with this whole conversation, I think it just shows that I am chronically online because no mentally healthy person is questioning if they are siren core or eclectic grandpa, you know? It very much is that sometimes we just need to log off. One of my favorite things is when I do videos about trends or aesthetics, I get comments saying that you're still wearing stuff that you wore when you were 16, and I love that. As a person that is online, obviously I obsess more about in regards to my personal style. One week I'll be like, oh my God, this is my personal style. And then next week I'm like, no, this is my personal style. And I'm just more aware about how my style is perceived because this is my job. And in a way, kind of similar to the whole, TikTok algorithm, branding yourself, I kind of am branding myself, and I then obsess over that idea that I need to put myself in a box and to brand myself in a specific way to get people, to watch my videos. I've really been just like having no idea what I like, no idea what my style is. And I mean, I'm really just obsessing over nothing. It doesn't matter. And especially on YouTube, I feel it's definitely more of a shift of real life fashion. Not all the time is it real life fashion, but I think it's way more because there's enough time and it's not necessarily just about like I need to be picked up by the algorithm. Like the audience, at least for me, we have more like rapport and a relationship because of especially how long my videos are. Like we have built that relationship versus you just seeing like a 10-second TikTok from me. There's less emphasis on kind of the aesthetic and all of that. I also feel aesthetics very much remind me, or in regards to the search for an aesthetic or personal style, really reminds me of like the color analysis, finding your body type, finding your kibby body type, and etc. This search for trying to crack down clothing and a style that matches you and that makes you feel comfortable. Sometimes there is a focus in regards to dressing in a flattering way with what society says is flattering, and can also kind of put you in a box as well. So even with those, I think you have to take it with a grain of salt, because what if I want to wear a color that technically by societal standards does not flatter me, but I personally like it? then I should wear it. But I definitely understand how helpful having a guide to help you get to a style, and again, like silhouette or clothing that does make you feel good. At the end of the day, with all of this that I talked about, wear whatever makes you happy. If you get inspired by trends, aesthetics, influencers, then super. I think a lot of this conversation is the overall how these aesthetics have turned into basically just micro trends. Please let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. Do you think it's really that bad to give styles like little names? Like, is it hurting anyone? They are just kind of like descriptor words in a way, but when I compare it to other descriptor words like preppy, boho, those have been around for like such a long time. Do you think dark academia will turn into that, or is it gonna be kind of like an outdated term in a couple of years? Let me know. Okay, I think I have definitely talked enough. So if you would like to see my face again, then make sure to subscribe right down below and hit that little bell to be notified every time I make a new video. And also don't forget to follow me on Instagram, which is alexsunshine83. I will see you in my next video, and I hope you have a super sunny day. Bye.